Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the official FinMick Call of Duty tier list. We have every single Call of Duty game from 2003, the year I was born, to the present. We're going to be ranking every single game, and if you disagree with me, just remember that I'm right, you're wrong, this list is factual, so if you do disagree, make sure to go in the comments and send me death threats. And just a disclaimer, my first COD was actually MW3, that was pretty much the first video game that I actually played online. And then all the games before that I've gone back and either played at a friend's house or, played retroactively. So if I rank one of the older games lower and that's your favorite game, I apologize, but I just haven't played it. I don't have that same kind of nostalgia for it. And then also I'm going to add one more tier of games I haven't played because there are a few on here that I haven't actually done before. Okay, right off the bat, we're throwing the first 3 CODs and haven't played. Guys, I'm not that old. I was 0 years old when the first one came out. And then we're also going to throw Big Red 1 in Finest Hour. I think I played Big Red 1 like once on my dad's PS2, but I don't remember anything about that. So we're pretty much just going with the multiplayer games here. And so the actual start of our list here is going to be COD 4, which this is a classic, honestly. COD 4 is what started it all. You have created class added, you have kill streaks, basically everything that makes COD what it is was COD 4. There's so many classic maps and weapons, very memorable COD. But this is not one that I got to play in its prime. I kind of went back and played it. I played the remastered version, and I like it. It's a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, for me, it just doesn't really stand up with some of the Golden Age CODs. I think I'm going to put it in B tier for now, but it's on the upper echelon of B tier. Oh yeah, we're going to be ranking within the rows as well, so if a game is further to the left, it's a higher rank than the ones further to the right. Next up, we got World at War, and honestly, this is probably the game I played the least on the list out of the ones that I have played. I remember playing split-screen zombies on Noct or like Derice back in the day whenever I'd play at my friends' houses. I never actually owned this game until well after it came out, and I really don't have a lot of time on multiplayer. I have played the campaign. I thought it was pretty good. One thing I will give this game credit for, though, is the beginning of Zombies. I'm a huge Zombies fan, and this is where it all started. World at War, you finish the campaign, you get put right into Noct. I mean, it's pretty much a classic. But as far as the game goes, I feel like this game gets glazed a lot, and it's not really deserving of that. From what I've seen in the multiplayer, there's like 1 or 2 weapons that are just completely broken, and everybody uses. Like, how is that fun? The zombies maps don't really hold up as well today. There's not a lot to do. Like, it's just a very dated game. I think I'm gonna have to go B tier as well. I know some people will put this in S tier, so people are gonna be mad at me for that, but we're going B tier. Okay, next up we got MW2, and dare I say, the most glazed game of all time. MW2 is a great game, it is, but the amount of nostalgia that people have for this game that shoots it up their rankings is insane. It is not as good as people say it is. Yes, we all made great memories on this game. Yes, the multiplayer is super fun, but if you go back, half the multiplayer maps are kinda ass. The game was completely broken. You had one-man army noob tubes, the akimbo models. I can't remember the whole story, but apparently Infinity Ward, the studio that developed this game, was going through like huge changes at this time. A bunch of people got fired, and so they didn't really patch the game at all. And that's where a lot of people say it gets its charm just for being completely broken. But for me, I prefer a game to be polished, In terms of campaign, personally, I'm not a huge campaign guy. It doesn't really make or break the game for me. But Modern Warfare 2 probably does have the best Modern Warfare campaign out of all the games, including the reboots. And you can't forget about Spec Ops. That was peak on Modern Warfare 2. I remember going over to my friend's house and playing split screen, doing the snowmobile missions. Elite memories. But all in all, I have been hating on this game a lot, but there is a lot of good to come from it. I just feel like a lot of people are blinded by nostalgia. With all that being said, though, we're going A tier for MW2. I know a lot of people would put this in S tier, so go ahead, crucify me in the comments. I don't care, guys. It's my list. Next up, we got Black Ops, and now we're starting to get into the games that I've actually played a lot. And Black Ops is another game where I feel like a lot of people have nostalgia for this game, but it's more, in my opinion, justified than MW2 is. Black Ops has maybe the best campaign. It's not my personal favorite, but it's definitely up there. The multiplayer is a lot of fun, but it's another game where it kind of falls victim to only having a couple guns that were good. The FAMAS was easily the best gun in the game. Everybody used it, and I'm more of an SMG guy myself, and the SMGs in this game are literally just unusable. The 74U is basically the only SMG that's even viable in this game, and that's pretty much the entire multiplayer. Like, everybody just uses those 2 weapons. As far as zombies goes, this is probably my second least favorite Treyarch Zombies game. Again, it just feels very dated to me whenever I go back and play this. I do like the maps. Shane, Call of the Dead, Ascension, Moon, all pretty good. I'm not as big of a fan of like Kino and stuff like that because I'm more of a main quest Easter egg guy. And one thing I forgot to mention about the multiplayer, I think this was like the first game that really allowed you to get gold camo for all your weapons. I think MW2 had like a gold deagle or something, but I know BO1 had like the COD points where you could like buy camos and stuff. It was definitely an interesting system, so I got to give it credit for that. I think for Black Ops, we're going to go A tier, and I'm putting it above MW2. Okay, so now we got MW3, and this was the first COD that I actually played during the life cycle of the game. A lot of people that played both MW2 and MW3 hate on MW3. They say MW2 is way better. I'm kind of the opposite opinion, but again, I'm biased just because this is my first game, so I have nostalgia for it. The campaign I thought was really good. I liked Makarov as the main villain. Also, shout out Spec Ops on this game. I love playing survival. I just have this very distinct memory of playing survival on Resistance fighting against the Juggernauts. I would always buy the Predator missile just to get through those rounds. But as far as the multiplayer goes, I would say that the guns definitely aren't as memorable as MW2. I personally prefer the maps. I thought MW2 had some stinkers. I feel like MW3 was more average overall. You know, the highs weren't as high, but the lows definitely were not as low. But for me, I still think that this game is slightly better than MW2. It's just my preference. I know that's definitely not the popular opinion, but we're putting it right above MW2, but below BO1. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially hit peak. This is immediate S tier. I don't know if there's anybody on Earth that doesn't put BO2 in S tier. Starting with campaign, this is personally my favorite campaign. I prefer it over the original Black Ops. I just remember being traumatized by the guy burning to death on the first mission. And as like a 9-year-old kid, that was definitely a sick memory. And then being able to make choices throughout the campaign and having multiple endings was just so awesome. And the story was just so peak in this game. As far as the multiplayer goes, it's probably top 1 or 2. You know, there can be arguments made for some of the other multiplayers, but BO2 really had it all. You know, the maps were just so good in this game. There might have been like one bad one, and it was probably Aftermath. But everything was just so memorable. You know, we get these new CODs nowadays where maps just aren't really memorable. Like, you don't say, oh, like, I wish I could go back and play Euphrates Bridge. But, like, maps from BO2 are just so good. They're being brought back every single year. The guns were peak. You have the MSMC, the M8, the DSR, the Ballista. And those are just the heavy hitters. All the mid-tier guns in that game are still more iconic than pretty much anything that comes out nowadays. And for me, this is like the perfect setting for a COD game, you know, being slightly in the future. And as far as zombies goes, this is still a great game. You know, it started off really rough with Transit and Die Rise back to back. And on a tangent, guys, Transit still sucks. I know people say whenever you play with your friends, it's such a fun map. It doesn't matter. You can play anything with your friends and it's going to be fun. But honestly, I think Die Rise is a little bit overhated. It's pretty hard and, you know, it's not the greatest map. But, you know, some people will say it's literally the worst of all time, which is not true. But then after that, we got back-to-back bangers with Mob of the Dead, Buried, and then Origins. 3 all-time greats. Origins and Mob are probably both in the top 3. And that kind of set us onto the path of the golden era of zombies, so you got to give BO2 credit for that. But overall, guys, this is just an S tier. This is almost as good as it gets as far as COD goes. And this is the game that got me addicted to video games. If it weren't for this game, I probably would not be playing video games today. I was hooked on this shit as a kid. Next up, COD Ghosts. Guys, it was kind of the start of the downfall. You know, this might have been what really started to kill the COD franchise. Campaign was alright, you know. Ended on a cliffhanger, which kind of sucks because we're never going to get to see the end of it because they're not going to make a Ghost 2. But it was a pretty good campaign overall, like decent story. The villain, Rorik, he was alright. It was more of an apocalyptic setting as opposed to like a war zone. But overall, it was decent. The multiplayer, I still think it's a little bit overhated. There were some cool systems in there. If you guys remember the perk system, how you had like points and you can really mix it up. So you could basically take a bunch of shitty perks, or you could take like a few really good perks, or you can mix them in. I actually really like that system. They also had field orders where you could do like a little challenge in game, and then whenever you would complete it, you would get like a care package, and it would have some pretty good stuff. But you can't talk about this multiplayer without talking about the maps. This game has some of the worst maps they have ever made. Just think about it, off the top of my head. Siege, Stonehaven, Freefall, like these maps were ass. And the color palette of this game was just terrible, you know, everything was so gray, it was impossible to see people. The guns were alright, but you know, it's an Infinity Ward game, the time to kill is like 0.01 seconds, so it doesn't really matter what you use. And then there was no UAV in this game, they had SATCOMs. Why did they do that? There was no reason, no need. If you don't remember what they were, they're basically UAVs that you place on the ground and people can just run up and smash them. But depending on how many you have is how good the UAV is. So like if you have 1, it's just like a small area. If you have 2, it's like a regular UAV. And then if you have like 3 or 4, it's an advanced UAV or something like that. And then I also just wanted to give a shout out to the DLC on this game because it did have some cool maps. They had like a Michael Myers map and like a pirate ship and like a gold rush and a predator map. They had a couple cool ones. And then the third mode in this game was Extinction. I only ever played the first map. I thought it was just fine. I preferred zombies a lot more. Doesn't really move it up at all for me. But yeah, unfortunately for COD Ghosts, I think we're going to have to go C or D tier. I think it's a low C tier. I feel like it's a low C tier. I don't know. Maybe we'll move that down later. Next up is Advanced Warfare, aka Battle of Duty. The campaign on this game was pretty cool. I remember getting this game on Christmas and playing that whole campaign in like one sitting. I don't think it was anything like remarkable, but it was good. The multiplayer was actually a lot of fun. I thought the advanced movement was a good time. My little kid brain was fried trying to figure out all the controls. And I'm not a hater of the jetpacks. You know, whenever we get to the other games, you'll see, but that doesn't really take any points off for me. I'm actually a jetpack fan. I definitely think that Advanced Warfare did it the worst, though. It was way too, like, clunky and jerky, if you know what I mean. But this game had some pretty good maps. You know, there was a lot of memorable ones, very colorful. This game also started introducing some dynamic maps, which I thought were pretty cool. There was a lot of good guns, a lot of memorable ones. Some of them were pretty trash, though. But we can't really talk about Advanced Warfare without talking about supply drops. If COD Ghost wasn't the beginning of the end, this really was the beginning of the end. And at this time, I was just a little kid. I think I was probably 11 years old whenever this game came out, so I wasn't able to buy the supply drops. I never got the HBR Insanity. I never got the Battle Obsidian Steed. I didn't get the Inferno. I didn't get the ASM-1 Speakeasy. Like, I had none of the weapons. And so I'd just run around with, like, the base ASM-1 with an extended mag and rapid fire and pretend that I had the Speakeasy. But I will say, this supply drop system wasn't as bad as some of the ones that we'll get to later, because at least you could get the base version of the guns if you had the DLC. And if I'm being honest, I low-key do kind of miss supply drops. They were exhilarating. I was a little kid that loved to gamble, so, you know, I can't hate on it that much. But now we'll go into zombies, and I'm just going to put it straight. I did not play zombies in this game. There was no zombies map at launch. They all came in DLC, and I didn't buy the DLC on this game because, again, I was a broke little kid. But I watched a lot of gameplay, a lot of YouTube videos, and it just looks like ass. None of the maps really compare to any of the Treyarch maps. I watch a lot of zombies rankings videos too, and they're pretty much always all at the bottom, minus like Vanguard maps. All in all, Advanced Warfare is a decent game. Maybe not the best mechanically, but it was still a fun game to play. I think we're going to keep it here in the B tier. We'll go above World at War, but below COD 4. And next up, we got maybe the best game of all time, Black Ops 3. Immediate S tier, top of S tier. It's the best COD game. Sorry to spoil it, guys. Nothing beats Black Ops 3. This was my shit. Everything that I could say about Black Ops 2 multiplayer and zombies is like tenfold for this game. But we will start with the campaign because that probably is the low point of this game. A lot of people didn't like the campaign. It didn't pick up on the Black Ops 2 story or anything. It was kind of its own, basically, side quest. And I feel like if it did follow the story, but it had the same kind of gameplay, it would be a lot more well received. But yeah, for me, the story just kind of sucks. I will say, though, the gameplay is pretty fun. I can't remember everything from it, but it was co-op, but I played it solo. But I remember having like a lot of cool abilities. It was more futuristic. I thought it was a good time. But let's just talk about the multiplayer. This is probably the most fun multiplayer that COD has ever had. A lot of people would say BO2, but for me, it goes to BO3. This game had so many classic maps. I don't think there's a map in the game that I dislike. I don't think there's ever been a time where I vote random and a map comes up and I'm disappointed in this game. It's just so good. I have nothing to complain about from the map standpoint. There's so many classics in this game like Combine, Hunted, Stronghold, Infection, and a million more. This game also has the best version of Nuketown. The wall running was done perfect for that map. And speaking of wall running, the advanced movement in this game was as good as it gets. That jetpack meter was silky smooth. It incorporated your wall running, your jetpack, and your slide, so you can only do so much. It honestly felt like less cracked movement than BO7 does now, and you had a jetpack in this game. But yeah, I love the advanced movement in this game. The jetpacks were awesome. It definitely did it the best out of all the jetpack CODs. And now to talk about the guns, this game had so many classics, and I felt like you could use literally anything. Everything was good in this game. And nothing was too overpowered either. You had the VMP, the Kuda, the M8, the Man-O-War, the KN, the Locust, the Brecci. There was just so many good guns in this. But that kind of leads us to the next discussion, which is the supply drops were also in this game. And this is arguably the worst they've ever been. Every gun was 100% locked behind supply drops. There was no other way to get them. There were no variants like Advanced Warfare had, so if you weren't lucky, you just didn't get the guns. There were people that would do supply drop openings on this game and spend thousands of dollars and not even get what they wanted. And again, just like Advanced Warfare, I was free to play, but I played this game so much and spawned so many supply drops with just crypto keys that I actually got almost everything. I'm probably only missing like 5 or 10 things. I didn't have all the melee weapons, but I didn't care about those. But the biggest issue was that the DLC guns were always overpowered. They're the best guns in the game. Like, do you remember the dual-wield Marshalls? It was literally a pistol when you had like a pocket dual-wield cannon. That shit was ridiculous, and you just couldn't get it unless you got lucky or paid a shit ton of money to get lucky. But we also can't forget about the camos, because this was the first game that really did master your camos right. Not only did we have gold and diamond challenges like we did in the old games, but we also had dark matter, and this was the first game to actually introduce a camo like that. And it might not have been the first animated camo, I think we might have had some before that, but Dark Matter and BO3 might still be one of the best looking camos they've ever made. They also did put a lot of camos in supply drops, which sucked, and there was a lot of cool ones that were locked, but this game really did start the customization wave. And I almost forgot to talk about specialists. This multiplayer had specialists in it. They were kind of biting off Overwatch a little bit, but I always thought the specialists were so fun. Each and every one had their own weapon and then like an ability, and you could choose between either one. And it actually wasn't crazy unfair. It was almost like a kill streak that you would get, but it didn't reset whenever you would die. But if you weren't getting kills and if you weren't doing well, like, it was going to take you forever to get it. And then whenever you did get the weapons, they weren't like super overpowered, you know? Like, there were some good ones like the Sparrow, the Purifier, the Tempest, and my favorite was the Ripper. I always played Spectre and would just stab people with the Ripper. But again, they weren't like too overpowered where they would get annoying, and they weren't common enough where it's like the entire game you were just dying to BS. And then there was the abilities that weren't as good as the weapons, but some of them were pretty useful. But again, just like the advanced movement, I feel like this game did the specialists better than any other COD did. And I know I've been glazing up BO3 for a while now, but we still gotta talk about the zombies. This is undeniably the best COD Zombies game out there. From a mechanics standpoint, this is really where we peaked. It's really just the BO2 and BO1 mechanics just polished up so much. It added gobblegums, which in my opinion were a great addition. This is when ammo mods were first introduced, which are now a big part of zombies. But the real thing of note in BO3 Zombies is just the maps. This game has some of the best maps that we've ever seen. They didn't miss once. We went from Shadows to Dreisendracht to Zetsebo to Gorod to Revelations. All of those are like top 15 zombies maps of all time. Jason Blundell was just in his absolute bag at this point and could not miss. And this game also had Zombies Chronicles, which I think to this day is still the best-selling Call of Duty DLC that they've ever released. And you can only give so much credit for remastered maps, but they all do look beautiful in this game, and it's a lot of fun to be able to play those older maps on the BO3 mechanics. And then also, this was the last game with Steam Workshop custom map support. This game, to this day, is still carrying the Zombies community. People are literally backward porting BO4 maps to be able to play on the BO3 mechanics just through custom maps. But that's enough about BO3, guys. I've glazed it up enough. This is probably my favorite game of all time. Top of S tier, best COD game there is. Okay, next up we got Infinite Warfare, and this is not a popular game. Whenever the reveal trailer for this game came out, it was like the most disliked video that YouTube had ever had at the time. People were just tired of the advanced movement. People did not want to see jetpacks anymore, and we're going into space in this game. Personally, I didn't have a problem with that setting. I like space. I thought it was cool. I did play the campaign on this game. It's actually one of the better ones, surprisingly. As far as the multiplayer goes, it's honestly just a watered down version of BO3, which is its biggest problem. This game has variants like Advanced Warfare did, and you do get them from supply drops, but it's a little bit of a better system. They have like a currency where you can just straight up buy weapons with. And I just overall feel like the system was a lot more fair. Not that it was great, but it was still more fair. And not to mention, the variants for weapons weren't like insanely overpowered like they were in Advanced Warfare. The weapons in this game weren't super memorable. I mean, there was a couple of cool ones, but there was nothing that was like really sticks out. I guess the NV4 was probably the most popular gun. Some of the maps were pretty cool. I like the aesthetics of this game. It had pretty good graphics, but you know, nothing was like, again, very memorable from this game. This game also had specialists like BO3 did, but again, just didn't do it quite as well. I don't think I could tell you a single specialist name in this game. As far as the zombies goes, this game actually had really good zombies. Easily the best non-Treyarch zombies game. Unfortunately, I didn't get the DLC on this game, so I didn't get to play all the maps, but Zombies in Spaceland was a lot of fun. And again, just like Advanced Warfare, I've watched a lot of gameplay on the other maps, and these ones actually do look a lot of fun. I think Raven the Redwoods and Challenge Shuffle tend to be the more popular maps as compared to Attack of the Radioactive Thing and Beast from Beyond. But overall, I can't say much about Zombies since I haven't personally played all the maps, but still, it seems pretty decent. So yeah, overall, this game is kind of a guilty pleasure to me. I know a lot of people would probably put this in D or F tier, but I think I'm going to leave it where it is. I think it's a B tier game. I think the bottom of B tier is where I want to put Infinite Warfare. Okay, moving on to World War II, guys. I did not really like this game. The campaign on this game was alright. It was kind of boring. I feel like it was fairly story focused. But, you know, I just don't really like World War II games. I just prefer a either modern or futuristic setting. So the campaign just didn't really hit for me. The multiplayer was pretty fun at launch. I actually did play it a lot, but it fell off pretty quick. I really burned out on this game fast. A lot of people had big problems with the division system in this game, which it did fucking suck. And they did end up overhauling it down the line, but I already quit the game at that point, so I haven't really played this game since they overhauled that system. I'd probably like it more if I were to, but I'm not going back to World War II, guys, sorry. I remember the maps on this game being alright, just nothing super memorable, but I feel like it's kind of how World War II games are, you know, nothing really stands out all that much. Some of the weapons were decent. I just remember the bar being super overpowered whenever I played. I liked using the PPSH, but I feel like it was kind of trash. I just liked using it anyway. And then this game also had supply drops. I don't think it had variants like Infinite Warfare and Advanced Warfare did, but it had like a similar system to Infinite Warfare where you could like buy different guns. And then this game also had the HQ, which was basically like a Destiny tower. It was like a social space where people could go and hang out and like open supply drops live. I thought that was pretty cool. Honestly, I hope they bring that back someday. But they pretty much just gave up on it. Whenever the game first started, you used to be forced to go to the HQ, but then they just got rid of it. So like you had to go into the menu and select the HQ, so it pretty much was just useless at that point. And then again, another game where I didn't buy the DLC, so I can't really say much about Zombies because I didn't play all the maps. From what I've heard, the first map is the best map anyway, and I did do that map. I did the Easter egg. I thought it was fun. but I just really did not prefer this to any of the Treyarch Zombies games or even Infinite Warfare. And since most people say that the first map on this game is the best, I can't really say that Zombies got any better after that. Overall, I think World War II was a C tier game. I'm going to put it above Ghosts. I think it was a little bit better than Ghosts, but again, just not my favorite game. Next up, we got BO4, and guys, this is another guilty pleasure game for me. No campaign on this game, but as I said at the start of the video, I'm not really a huge campaign guy, so I don't really care personally. But instead of campaign on this game, they made Blackout, which was supposed to be like a Fortnite competitor. In my opinion, I liked Blackout way more than I ever liked Warzone. I was never a huge fan of Warzone, actually. I thought Blackout was so much more fun. The map looked so much better. I feel like the graphics were a lot better. You didn't have loadouts. The looting system was way cooler. All the locations were based on like previous Black Ops locations. I still stand by the fact today that if Blackout were free to play instead of being part of the $60 Black Ops 4 game, it would have been way bigger than Warzone ever was. The multiplayer of this game really started to rip Overwatch. Instead of being 6v6, they went down to 5v5. And then they had specialists like BO3 and IW did, except they weren't really, done the same. Instead of being able to choose between an ability and a weapon, you pretty much always had like a main weapon and then you had like an equipment for each operator, I believe. And it just didn't really work that well. Some of the specialists in this game were just super overpowered and annoying. I remember the one dude had like a radioactive shield that would just like completely block up a lane, and he had like barbed wire. That shit was so annoying. We don't need that in a COD game. And then this game also had like a higher health cap. I think it was like 150 or 200. So the time to kill was really slow, which I liked. But the issue was that it had manual healing, so like you wouldn't just heal from getting to cover. You had to like stim and like put a bandage on. And it was an interesting mechanic. Honestly, I thought it was a cool way to switch it up, but I'm happy they only did it once. The launch maps in this game were pretty good. I remember liking most of them. I think the biggest issue that this game had multiplayer-wise was how they handled the DLC. They didn't let you buy individual DLC packs. You basically had to buy the Black Ops Pass, and it was like $50. So you had to buy the entire DLC at once. And just the way they released content was just really bad on this game. And then this game also had supply drops. I believe this is the last game to have them. And for a while, this was probably the worst system they ever had. It was like cases, and just the odds to get the new weapons were insanely low. It was terrible. I think by the end of the game, they did kind of buff your odds a little bit, and they made it so that like you could spend many cases on like buying a weapon straight up. So they made the system a little bit better, but still, just supply drops were not it, especially at this point in the franchise. And then the weapons for multiplayer weren't really anything special. I remember they did have like an operator mod system, which is pretty much the BO7 Prestige attachments, where you could get like a specific attachment for each weapon that like really changed how it worked and made it like a lot better. Some of them were kind of useless, but some of them were pretty cool. And overall, the weapons just weren't all that notable. As far as zombies goes in this game, I feel like it's very much overhated. They changed some of the systems, which really sucked. Changing up the perks wasn't the best move. They made it so that instead of the perks being on the map, you would choose which perks you want before the game, and you were kind of restricted to those four, which really sucked. There was no jug and speed cola in zombies, and that was just a dumb decision. As far as the maps go on this game, though, I actually liked a good bit of them. I think the Chaos maps were way better than the Aether maps. 9, Voyage, Dead of the Night, Ancient Evil, all those maps were really good in my opinion. Voyage would probably be the worst out of all of those. And then the Aether maps were just really not it. They were all remasters. But to be honest, I actually like Blood of the Dead and TOG quite a bit. Alpha, Omega, and Classified aren't really my favorite, but I still just much prefer the Chaos over the Aether maps in this game. Overall though, I think the Zombies really gets a lot more hate than it deserves in this game. I thought it was pretty good. I think I'm going to put this game in the top of B tier. I think I like it more than Advanced Warfare and COD 4. I don't know, that might be crazy to put it that high, but I think that's where I want to put it. Next up we got Modern Warfare 2019. I fucking hate this game, guys. This game is what ruined Call of Duty. The campaign was pretty good. It was a good reboot. I liked it. It was pretty interesting. They did the characters pretty well. It was fun. But the multiplayer is where we start to have issues in this game. If you remember correctly, this game got rid of red dots on the minimap, added doors, which led to this terrible map designing philosophy. It added the gunsmith, which to this day, I just will never understand. Why do we need 50 different barrels that all do basically the same thing? And half the attachments in this game make your gun worse. Like, why would I want to put a red dot on my gun if it makes me slow down my ADS by 4 seconds? There was just so much bad that was introduced in this game that is still carried over to modern mechanics, and I just hate it. The movement was pretty decent on this game. It was definitely one of the better modern games for movement. But I also just have to say, the maps on this game were god-awful. Some of the worst that we've ever seen. Like, we have some of the worst maps ever. We had, like, Grozny Raid, Euphrates Bridge, Azure Cave, Piccadilly. Like, they really made some stinkers on this game. The gunplay was pretty good on this game. I liked how the guns felt, but I just have so much hate for this game. It just pains me to say anything nice. I think this game had Spec Ops if I remember correctly, but I didn't really like it. It was just kind of boring. And this might be a hot take, but if this game wasn't in its prime during COVID, then it would not be as popular. People have so much nostalgia for this game because everybody was forced to stay in their house and all they could do is play video games. So this game was really popular in terms of player count, but this shit just sucks. Yeah, unfortunately, we're putting this in C tier. It's better than World War II and Ghosts, but C tier. I feel like this is a good time to also include Warzone because it kind of came out at the same time. I'm not a fan of Warzone. It pretty much has the same problems that MW19 has. Also, by the time that Warzone came out, I just played so much Fortnite and Blackout that I was honestly just burnt out on BR in general. And I just do not like the loadout system in Warzone. This is another one where I feel like COVID really helped Warzone blow up. Overall, it's not that bad. It's just not my cup of tea, so I'm just going to put it down here with MW19. Next up is Cold War, and this is probably my least favorite Black Ops game if I had to be honest. The campaign was pretty good. It was probably better than BO3's. I liked Adler as a character. This game kind of suffers the same fate as like the World War II and Black Ops 1 games do, with the fact that I just don't really like games that are set in the past all that much. Some of the campaign missions were really cool though, they were like trippy. But as far as multiplayer goes, I didn't play this game a ton. You know, the multiplayer was just alright. I think it launched with like 10 maps or something and I played the most at launch. So that was just really disappointing. And I don't blame that on the devs, this game was made during COVID, which really set them back. So I'm going to cut them some slack on that front. As a software engineer myself, I kind of feel where they're coming from. But yeah, there weren't a lot of maps and a lot of them were pretty bad. Like there wasn't a lot of memorable maps in this game, I thought. The weapons were just okay. I just didn't really like the feel of this game. Graphically, this game was also not my favorite. I didn't like how the UI looked. And then for the zombies, I didn't really play zombies all that much in this game until recently. I played D Machine whenever it came out. I actually liked the map. I thought it was pretty good. But then whenever they released Firebase C for DLZ 1, that literally completely killed all interest I had in zombies on this game. I remember being part of the day one Easter egg hunt and getting stuck on the mimic step, and it was just so buggy. And to this day, even to this day, in 2026, if you try to do the mimic step for the Firebase C Easter egg, it doesn't work. Like, it just sucks. But I have gone back and played all the maps on this game and done all the Easter eggs more recently. I went back and played Firebase Z again, and I still hate it just as much as I did whenever it came out. But I did like Mauer. I thought Mauer was actually a really good map. And then Forsaken was just alright. You know, it was just a location from the campaign, which I thought was kind of lazy, but, you know, the map was okay. And then I just did not like Outbreak at all. I don't really fuck with the open world zombies. I just thought it was boring. And overall, this is probably the worst Rare Zombies game in my opinion. I just don't like it that much. As a game overall, we're going C tier. Sorry, Cold War. Next up, we got Vanguard, and guys, I did not play this game. This is the only game from COD 4 to BO7 that I did not play. I've already said I do not like World War II games. This was at a low point for COD. I didn't like Cold War that much. I didn't like MW19. I just completely skipped this game, and I'm happy I did because this is overall one of the worst rated COD games. If I had to put it anywhere, it'd probably end up going in D, and I might just end up putting it there because I don't think any of these games are going to go in D. So we'll just have Vanguard alone in the D tier. Next up, we got MW222, and this is another one of the most hated modern COD games, but surprisingly, I actually played this game a lot. This is kind of the point in COD where I completely stopped caring about the campaign, so I did not even play the campaign on this game or Spec Ops, so this is pretty much just a multiplayer review only. And in my opinion, the multiplayer wasn't as bad as people say it was. They basically nerfed the Modern Warfare 19 movement, and that's why a lot of people hate it, but I didn't really think it was that big of an issue. I thought the gunplay was pretty fun. The maps did suck, but they were not as bad as the MW19 maps were, I can promise you that. I know another big issue that this game had was there was no Dead Silence perk, it was just a field upgrade, and so people really did not like that. But overall, I think I'm going to leave it right here in the B tier. I don't really have much to say about this game. I just like it more than the average person does. So B tier for the new MW2. Next up, we got MW3, and this is whenever we started getting back-to-back sequels, which was easily the worst decision that COD has ever made. Like, nobody wants to see the same game 2 years in a row. I remember whenever this game was coming out, there were leaks that it was just supposed to be a DLC for MW2, and so like all the hype completely died. I did end up buying this game, but I didn't even get to Prestige 1. Like I got to like level 40 and I quit. I just really didn't like it. It was on all the MW2 maps, and like I said earlier, I think the MW2 maps are a little bit overrated. But before BO7 came out, I was craving COD, so I went back to MW3, and I did play this game a lot. And I will say that I quite liked it, but again, this is another multiplayer review. I did not play campaign. I heard it was like an open world campaign on this game, and it really sucked, so I didn't even bother. I did not play MWZ. I did not like Outbreak, so I knew I wasn't going to like the open world zombies on this game. So I didn't bother with that. So again, another multiplayer only review. But I thought it was pretty fun. I liked the higher health in this game, so the time to kill was a little bit slower. The guns just felt a lot crispier than the MW2 guns did. Also introduced the weekly challenges in this game where you could start getting like modifications for your weapons, and some of them were actually really cool. And then the DLC maps in this game are actually really, really good. You know, the launch maps were all the MW2 remastered maps, and then in the DLC they did all the new maps. And like I said, I think a lot of them were very memorable, pretty good. I mean, it was a recent COD. But yeah, I don't have a ton of time on this game, but from my experience, I think I like it a little bit better than MW2. Alright guys, I'm taking a second look at this, and I think I'm going to put Cold War above these two games, and I'm going to move MW2 down one. I just thought about it again. I do think I like Cold War more than these, and I didn't even play the campaign or the third mode, so I have to give it to Cold War. Alright, next up we got BO6. This game had so much hype whenever it came out. People thought it was going to be so good, and it had such a good start too, and they completely fumbled it. I did play the campaign on this game. I thought it was alright. They kind of wasted Adler as a character. I remember during the promotion for this game, they hyped up Adler like he was going to be some big character, and then he just was barely even in this campaign. He was more of a side character than anything. Some of the missions were pretty cool. I did like the zombies missions and stuff. I know a lot of people that play COD are like, oh, I only want the war missions, but I think the special missions are pretty cool. It just wasn't super memorable though. Like, I can't remember much other than those special missions, even though I just played this campaign a year ago. Again, this game does suffer from being in the past. I just don't like the setting as much. As far as the multiplayer goes, I actually did play multiplayer a lot in this game. But if there's one word I could use to describe this multiplayer, it's just brain rot. Every single map was just ramming your head into a wall over and over and over. All the maps were just so small, there was no flow to them. The face-off maps were the worst thing they ever added. I cannot believe they added hardcore stakeout 24/7. People were just grinding their camos instantly. You could get like 5 guns gold in 1 hour. It was so stupid. Easily the worst thing they've ever fucking added to this game. But yeah, this game might have the worst maps on this list. The BO6 maps are just so bad. The post-launch maps really aren't much better. Some of them are a little bit bigger, but again, just not great. The weapons in this game weren't super memorable either. I thought they were alright. Probably better than Cold War, but overall not great. And then for zombies, I actually think this is one of the more underrated zombies modes. I like every single map on this game except for the Tomb. I actually consider Terminus, Shattered Veil, and Citadel as some of the better maps in zombies. Reckoning was just alright. I do like the double boss fight, but you know, just the setting was a little bit boring. I think they significantly improved on the Cold War mechanics though. I'm still not a huge fan of the modern zombies mechanics. I definitely prefer the old ones, but I do think it was a step up from Cold War. And the boss fights in this game are really good. I'm really disappointed they didn't do a super Easter egg where you can do like a boss fight mode. It would be sick just to be able to run them all back to back or something like that. But yeah, overall, I think BO6 had a lot of potential, and it just fumbled super hard. On the tier list, I think I like it slightly better than Cold War. I like it better than IW. I think I'm going to have to keep it below these ones, so we're going in B tier for BO6. And last year, we got the most recent COD, BO7. As of recording, this is the current COD. We're at the end of Season 2, so we're about halfway through the game's life cycle. And starting off, I did not play the campaign on this game. Apparently, it's the worst they've ever made. I didn't even try it because I didn't want to disappoint myself. From what I've seen, it looks really bad. I'm not even going to give it a shot. So this review is going to be about endgame, multiplayer, and zombies. Starting with endgame, I think it's pretty fun. It's basically like a new version of DMZ and kind of MWZ. You know, doing like open world PvE isn't really my favorite kind of mode, but I do think endgame's pretty fun. You kind of like have to upgrade your power level, and there's like exotic traits and skills and weapons. It reminds me a little bit of Destiny. I used to play a lot of Destiny. So overall, it's not bad. It's not something that I put a ton of time into, but I do like the mode overall. I think it's better than not having it. And moving on to multiplayer, guys, I genuinely think this is one of the most underrated multiplayers that we've had in a while. People hate on this game so much just because of the COD fatigue and the back-to-back Black Ops games and how disappointing Black Ops 6 was and the AI art and whatever. But put all that aside, and this is genuinely a great and really fun multiplayer. I think the movement's a lot of fun. It is a little bit cracked being able to sprint and slide in all directions, but they've been balancing it. They've been listening to the community. You know, they've slowed it down. They made it so that sliding isn't quite as cracked. I think the wall bouncing is fine. I like using the wall jumps to be able to counter campers. It's nice to be able to like jump up into a window and get someone from an angle they wouldn't be expecting. You honestly don't see it a whole lot. It's not like you need to be wall jumping constantly. A couple of the maps have like dedicated wall jump spots, so I think that's pretty cool. Good map design. And speaking of the maps in particular, there's a lot of good ones in this game. The launch maps are definitely a lot less brain rot. There are face-off maps in this game, but for one, none of them are as bad as Stakeout ever was. And for two, they only add like one a season. I feel like they were pumping those out in BO6. But yeah, so far I've actually been really impressed with the just the overall vibe of the maps. The flow has been a lot better. The 3-lane design is a lot better in this game. And just the setting. I told you guys so many times now, I like the futuristic CODs. I like the ones that are more modern. I think the setting is really good, and it kind of just scratches that itch that BO3 and BO2 scratch for me as well. The guns in this game are definitely better than the ones that we've received in the other modern Call of Duties. We got a couple remasters like the MSMC, the Peacekeeper, the M8. We got like the Rampart from BO4, the Maddox, the Swordfish. So we've gotten a lot of remasters, but there's also a lot of good originals that have been mixed in. I'm definitely more impressed with the selection of weapons in this game than I have been in the past couple games. This multiplayer also has weekly challenges like WWII did, and they're adding a lot of cool stuff as far as attachments go that really change up how the guns actually function. And the camo grind in this game is honestly probably the best it's ever been. They brought back weapon prestige, which is great in this game. They have prestige attachments similar to the BO4 operator mods, and those are also similar to the weekly challenge attachments, where some of them really do change up how the gun feels and plays entirely. But every time you prestige your weapon in this game, you get unique universal camos. A lot of them are brought back, so they have a lot of camos from BO2 like Bacon and Graffiti and Afterlife and Cyborg and so on. And there's also some from BO4 as well, which are pretty cool. And so it makes it feel like you don't even have to go for like the Dark Matter style camos. You don't have to do the master camos because you can just get universal camos by leveling up your guns. Not to mention the amount of camos that they put in the events. There's a lot of good ones that they've had throughout the events. I feel like Black Ops 6 did not capitalize on that at all. And then one last thing I want to mention for the multiplayer is the augment system. I think this for sure needs to come back in every COD. And if you don't know what that is, all the augments are that every score streak, lethal, tactical, and field upgrade basically has 2 upgrades that you can get for it, and you get to select one of them. And you upgrading it by using it more. And it just makes it a lot more powerful, and it adds a lot more progression to the game. And also adds a lot of customizability. So I think they definitely need to bring those back in the next COD. For zombies in this game, it's kind of hard to say because we're only halfway through the life cycle. I will say the core mechanics have improved on BO6 in pretty much every way. We now have new augments for everything. You can also have 2 minor augments on all your equipment and perks whenever you fully upgrade them, which is amazing. They added curse mode in this game, which is a lot of fun. Having the classic point system back feels so amazing. The HUD in curse mode looks a million times better than the BS new zombies HUD that they use in the modern games. And they have the relics as well, which it's a lot of fun to get them and do the challenges, but my one complaint with those is that some of the relics are just totally useless. Like one of the tier 1 relics is to add mimics to the map. Like why the fuck would I want to do that? But the maps themselves have been solid so far. Ashes of the Damned is probably the best modern map that we've gotten. And Astra Malorum was also a very solid map in my opinion. As of recording, Paradox Junction just came out a week ago and it's definitely the weakest map that we've gotten in this game. But the Easter egg was pretty fun, the Blundergat's fun to mess around with. And in my opinion, it's still better than the Tomb. But Streets are saying it's just a filler map. We're still getting 3 more DLCs, so, you know, I'm not closing the door on zombies yet. I think Paradox Junction kind of threw us off the rails a little bit, but, you know, I'm not giving up hope. So it's time to rank this now, and I feel like you guys know where this is going. I've been glazing this game up. This is going to be unpopular. It's not a popular game in general. A lot of people might even put this in, like, C or D tier, or worse. I'm going A tier. I think this is the best game in A tier. I've easily played this COD the most out of any modern COD, and we're only halfway through the life cycle. So go ahead guys, put your death threats in the comments. It's all good. I'm defending my opinion here. I don't give a fuck. Black Ops 7 is an A tier Call of Duty. If you're hating and you haven't played it, then you can't say nothing. So I think that's pretty much it as far as the tier list goes. All this stuff at the bottom I haven't played. I think this is COD Online. This is like a mobile game. We'll rank COD Mobile. I've played COD Mobile a couple times. I'm just not a big mobile game fan. I think COD Mobile would be a great game if they had it on like PC or on console. It's kind of cool because it's basically a blend of every COD game. It has the best maps, the best weapons, and some original stuff too. The microtransactions in this game though are absolutely horrendous. I know there's people with like $1,000 inventories on COD Mobile. That's crazy. But I think I'm just going to leave this game in the B tier. I mean, it seems pretty solid. I've only played it a little bit. Again, not a big fan of the mobile games, but overall I think it's pretty good. So that is my list. If you couldn't tell, I'm definitely more of a Black Ops fan than a Modern Warfare. My top 4 games are all Black Ops games. I just prefer Treyarch style of game, and I also am a huge zombies fan, so I tend to gravitate towards the games that have zombies. So anyway, there's my list. Let me know what you guys think. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? If you want to leave a death threat, that's all good. If you want me to glaze BO3 a little bit more, let me know. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate you for watching. This has been a long ass video. See ya, Chud.